Welcome to Grab or Stab. I'm Matt McFarlane. Here we grab if it's good and we stab if it's not. Today we'll be talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, released 12 years after the original in 1986. Now imagine yourself going down a water slide. You're both upside down and backwards. You have a suit on. You're gonna fall into a pit of tarantulas, all while you're licking an ice cream cone. Well, that kind of sums up the wild ride that is the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's kind of terrifying and fun at one point in time, but mostly just silly and ridiculous. But before we get into all that, let me explain how decisions are made around this place on whether or not to grab or stab a movie. First of all, how good are the kills? Second, the characters. Third, how does the movie affect either the genre or the franchise at the time? And fourth, how scary is it? Not only because of the success of the original film, but also the fact that Leatherface survived the original movie, it was only a matter of time until we saw the cannibalistic maniacs again on the big-ass projector screen. And almost 12 years later, it happened. Alright, let's just hope this time around they don't sell the rights to the Mafia again. Directed once again by Tobe Hooper, the goal of the second movie was to really tap into the dark humor that was missed by most of the viewers from the first movie, and create a much different story. And man, did they. Even the screenwriter of the movie, L.M. Kit Carson, said they were attempting to use satire in regards to the huge influx of John Hughes teen movies. These were coming out at the time with movies like 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club. Case in point, even having a poster that was a spin-off of The Breakfast Club. Just imagine somebody walking into your office pitching a chainsaw movie to you inspired by The Breakfast Club. You're either wanting unemployment checks or you're smoking the same shit that dude walked in did. I would have definitely preferred what John Carpenter did with Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, just kind of continuing that storyline, keeping it scary. But hey, can't really complain too much about an iconic horror movie continuing its legacy. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was a big-budget Hollywood production with a focus this time around on comedy and more gore, which was quite a bit different from the original, which centered around more minimal gore and a more atmospheric approach to make you feel unsettled and tense from beginning to end. And although the sequel received mixed reviews, initially the movie still ended up grossing over $8 million domestically in theaters, almost doubling its budget of $4.5 million, and had some solid success on home video as well. Not to go all boomer on you guys, but home videos, kids. Yeah, that was a thing. Despite this, apparently the film on paper never showed as making a profit, and the actors in the movie made very little off the residuals. Nobody was willing to invest the money to audit the books though, unfortunately. The plot of the second movie mainly revolves around a radio DJ named Stretch, played by Caroline Williams, who's our final girl and also plays a tiny little role in the third Chainsaw movie. While minding her own business working as a radio DJ, Stretch hears a horrific murder happen from someone calling into the station. Along her journey to help solve the murders, Stretch eventually gets captured by the Sawyer family. Along the way, Stretch meets a former Texas Marshal named Lefty, played by Dennis Hopper, who's attempting to hunt down the series of unsolved chainsaw murders across Texas after the events of the first film. Lefty then attempts to save Stretch from Leatherface and the family. You really have to go into this movie with a different mindset than the first one. Weird enough, this one even includes a love story involving Leatherface. Even though the character Chop Top is completely ridiculous, in my opinion, I do think they did a better job developing the characters in the second one than they did in the first one. The movies are just so completely different though. The second movie the plot is kind of just sloppy and all over the place. It was kind of funny at times, but like I mentioned before, I wish they would have just continued the scariness of the predecessor. The production company Cannon Films wanted more of a horror film, while director Tobe Hooper, like I mentioned, wanted something totally different. Rumor has it the production company was never happy with the final product, and they really treated Tobe Hooper pretty terrible throughout production. According to Caroline Williams, who played Stretch, Cannon ruined the film in the editing process.
And they got a hold of it and cut it themselves and just fucked it up.
Gunnar Hansen, the original Leatherface, was initially approached to reprise his role as Leatherface, but ultimately, they couldn't agree to the financial terms, so actor Tom Morga and Bill Johnson ended up playing Bubba Leatherface this time around. If you think Tom Morga's name sounds familiar, well, it's because he's kind of a badass in the horror genre, being that he's the only person ever to play Jason Voorhees, Leatherface, and Michael Myers. He played Jason in Friday the 13th: A New Beginning during Tommy's hallucinations and portrayed Michael Myers in the first half of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. That's a hell of a resume, dude. Speaking of resumes, let's see if the curriculum vitae of the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one we want to grab or one we want to stab. So let's get into the movie. The movie opens with another one of those famous Chainsaw title scrolls, this time with a different narrator. Damn, I kinda like the other guy who was paid in weed to narrate the first movie, but this guy's okay, I guess. The prologue lays out what happened in the original film and what Sally told others after she escaped. It goes on to say they found no evidence a crime even happened. No house, no killers, nothing. Well, shit, man. Apparently there's been an alien invasion, and the old Sawyer funhouse must have been beamed up to space because this makes no sense. It goes on to say, though, that over the last 13 years, reports of bizarre, terrible murders happened all across Texas. And like the Chainsaw movies love to do, we start out in another car. This time it's not a cramped, sweaty van borrowed from a sound engineer on set like in the first one, but a Mercedes-Benz coupe with two yuppies, Buzz and Rick the Prick. Rick being the madman, firing magnum shots outside his window, and Buzz is the one driving the car. We next are introduced to Stretch, our primary protagonist in the movie and final girl with one of my favorite radio voices. Buzz the driver, who's a high school senior, and when he's not asking his mommy to fold his laundry, loves drinking and driving, and pretending to be a badass with his holographic glasses wearing pal here Rick the Prick. They're on their way to a post-graduation frat party. They call and troll Stretch a bit, and then decide it would be a great idea to play a little chicken with a local truck driving by. Y'all mess with the wrong truck, man. Later that night, as Stretch is vibing out in the station and having some beers herself, the two hooligans call back with a request this time. The fellas quickly have their Buzz killed when the truck from earlier is waiting for them on a bridge, and things go south real quick. They try to get away as the truck keeps pace with them on the bridge. All while still on the phone with Stretch, a person who we assume is Leatherface hops up from the back of the truck wearing the corpse of Nubbins Sawyer, the hitchhiker from the original movie, and starts hacking into Daddy's Mercedes. We get a great close-up of the Big L's new mask in this one, which legendary special makeup creator Tom Savini said was supposed to be a combination of 2 or 3 different human faces, all from different ethnicities. You may know Tom Savini for his work creating special effects on Friday the 13th, Part 1 and Part 4. And even after trying to unsuccessfully shoot the big guy in the face and the bullet deflecting by the body shield, Leatherface goes ahead and starts customizing this Benz along with the driver's head with our first 2 kills in the movie. Already, we are way gorier than the first film as Buzz's head gets sliced in 2. I love how the head just slides off and the blood starts spraying everywhere. Does it look real? Of course not. But is it hilarious? You bet your ass it is. Tom Savini wanted to use the actor's real head for this kill because of how at the time it was so hard to make a fake head look real. So they made a fiberglass top for the actor's head with a balloon inside, and when the balloon would inflate, it would lift the actor's head and come apart. That, along with a bunch of blood, made it look pretty damn cool. They did eventually use a fake head for the shot of the back of the head, but nonetheless, it was a great sequence. Stretch and her producer LG hear the entire thing happen over the phone and feel pretty freaked out about it. The next day, the car is found near an overpass, and we see Lieutenant Lefty Enright, played by Dennis Hopper, who's not only investigating the scene, but doing a solid early audition for Toy Story. We know Rick the Prick is also dead here when Lefty finds his glasses at the crash site. The local popo arrive and are pretty pissed he's messing with his crime scene. Clearly not authorized to be there. They try to get rid of him, but Lefty's been chasing these mysterious chainsaw killings all over Texas and thinks this crime's linked. Also, we found out here that Lefty's nephew was killed in the original movie and is part of the reason why he's trying to track down the killers. Fun fact, he's actually Franklin and Sally's uncle, the whiny wheelchair-bound character and the final girl from the first movie. The local cops have no luck getting rid of him, and Lefty convinces them to try some of his ideas, like putting the incident in the news to see if anyone has any information. Following the ad in the paper, Stretch tracks down Lefty to express how bad she wants to help and do something with her life other than just playing sick beats on the radio. While this is happening, there's a nice little Texas-Oklahoma chili cook-off happening downstairs, where we see the old man from the original movie, the cook! Sadly though, this will be Jim Cito's last Chainsaw movie. We learn his name for the first time, and what's his chili secret, you might be asking?
I got a real good eye for prime meat.
Yep, you guessed it. Old Drayton's on cloud 9 because he won the damn thing. I didn't know the old man was so passionate about the culinary industry. After Lefty picks up a few chainsaws for himself, he heads back to Stretch's place of work to convince her to play the tape of the kills over the radio, hoping that the shock factor will convince the police to help. She eventually does, which really pisses Drayton Sawyer off. Later that day, now nighttime back at the radio station, Stretch runs into a creepy dude that snuck into the station. A mysterious weird guy who tells Stretch him and his brother Bubba listen to her every night and immediately think, oh boy, this just got weird. The weird guy on the couch is Chop Top Sawyer, played by Bill Moseley. Bill Moseley actually got the role because following the first movie, he played the hitchhiker in a fan film called the Texas Chainsaw Manicure, which was sent to Tobe Hooper. Hooper liked the way that he portrayed the hitchhiker so much that he told him that if he ever made a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, he'd keep him in mind for the role. Come to find out, Chop Top is actually Nubbin Sawyer's twin brother. After Stretch gives him a half-assed tour of the studio and hopes you can get rid of him, Holy shit! We get the biggest jump scare so far of the movie as Leatherface storms out of the record room and accidentally hits his chainsaw on his brother's metal plate in his head, cutting off his Sonny Bono wig.
Look what you did to my Sonny Bono wig, dude! Oh, God damn, I can't believe it!
Story has it that Chop Top's metal plate was from his time in Vietnam during the events of the first film, and you'll hear Vietnam references several times by Chop Top later on. The big fella does his favorite dance and heads off to find Stretch. While this is going on, LG gets back from a coffee break, spits in the Sawyer's truck, and runs into the hitchhiker going through their shit.
What the shit?
Leatherface smashes through the door, knocking LG down the stairs and onto the floor in front of the hitchhiker. Then he gets hit in the head with a hammer 16 times here, and 4 more times a few minutes later. His body starts seizing like Kirk's death in the first movie. Spoiler though, apparently LG's a T-1000 and he's still not dead. After finally breaking in the room Stretch was quarantined in, Leatherface makes the room all kinds of messy, and then we get our first really good look at the Leatherface mask in part 2. Stretch decides he can either die or try to seduce Leatherface and hopes she can get away. Being that Leatherface has probably never had a girlfriend that's still alive, she decides to go that route.
Oh, are you really? Really? Good?
Bubba gets excited about the idea of it and starts rubbing his chainsaw up her leg and starts pushing it between her legs while licking his lips, like Leatherface loves to do. After creaming his pants, destroying her studio some more, and doing some thrusting dance moves like me dancing at every wedding I've ever been to, Leatherface goes down to check on the others. Chop Top then asks Bubba if he's killed the girl or not, which he nods his head, yes. This part definitely plays into the underlying theme of Leatherface's character, which is on the outside he might seem like some crazed, demented, masked murderer with a chainsaw, but in reality he usually acts like a little kid who's either afraid of repercussions from the family or just scared because somebody broke into his house. And we definitely see that here because he just completely lets a victim go because he has a crush on her. They high-five each other and celebrate
Bonus party!
before leaving the studio. Stretch decides to follow the truck as they leave. The truck pulls into a place called Texas Battleland, which looks like some sort of abandoned monument. Stretch follows them in and tries to sneak inside when she's almost ran over by an unknown vehicle. But don't worry, Stretch, it's just a prank. It's just Lefty being Lefty.
Lefty!
Stretch falls into some sort of booby trap and now finds herself in some weird underground torture paradise. She keeps falling down and down further, and Lefty says, "Fuck this shit, the double chainsaws are coming out, baby." Lefty, looking like Rambo, is ready to head inside. Next, Lefty sneaks in very quietly so the Sawyer family doesn't know he's there. Lefty, come on, man, what are you doing? After walking in the front door like he owns the place, he finds a little secret door in the wall full of a bunch of human body parts.
It's the devil's playground.
Lefty's had enough now and decides the best way to save Stretch and kill the others is to bring down the entire place stick by stick. Sorry, Stretch, if a roof happens to collapse on you, I really don't think Lefty cares at this point. Stretch wakes up to the sound of the Sawyers bantering, and she's probably thinking this is perfect. If I get hungry, I'm right where they make human beef jerky. Excellent. She hides and watches as Leatherface starts slicing up her pal LG. And what's on the menu for tomorrow according to the cook? Well, some pre-game croissant human sandwiches, that is. Once again, guys, like I said in the first movie, I definitely recommend not eating while you watch this movie. After Leatherface fillets some skin off of LG, Stretch convinces Leatherface to help her get out of there, and he forces her to put on LG's freshly cut mask of his face and LG's hat. She doesn't know yet that this is LG's face, but regardless, she's grossed the hell out. They do the boot, scoot, and boogie together a bit, and then are rudely interrupted by Lefty caving in the ceiling on them a little more. Leatherface ties her up so she doesn't go anywhere, and then the body that was being carved up earlier awakens from the dead, and it's LG! Not only was he hit 20 times in the head earlier with a hammer, but now his face and now part of his torso have also been torn off, and he's still going. This guy's still going like Jason Voorhees through 12 Friday the 13th movies. Now I know Jason kinda did technically die, but still. Staying true to himself, he spits, uses the word darling a bunch, and then tells Stretch not to be scared. One minute you're playing AC/DC on the radio, then the next minute you're part of some cannibalistic fetish with your face cut off. Life can come at you fast, man. LG cuts Stretch loose and then goes on to finally die, marking the third death of the movie at this point. Stretch kindly gives him his face back as a sweet little goodbye present, and then goes about getting the hell out of there. She stumbles upon the Sawyer's open floor plan and gets spotted in the process. In the midst of bringing this place down, Lefty finds a corpse in a wheelchair, which turns out to be his nephew Franklin from the original film still holding his flashlight. I'm sure this scene helps to give Lefty's character some closure, and we also get a little bit more insight on how Franklin was killed, being that in the original film, the audience was behind Franklin, and all we could see was the blood director Tobe Hooper and his makeup artists were spitting out of the frame. Here you can clearly see he was sawed vertically through the face. Damn, poor Franklin, man. They share a moment, and now Lefty wants to bring the place down even more, and Stretch finds herself running through some old tunnels that look like a southern cannibal's wet dream, and she's eventually met by Leatherface again. And this time it seems like the honeymoon's over. Lefty doesn't hear the screams and collapses the exit to her escape. Stretch gives Leatherface the old "it's not you, it's me" speech, but Leatherface actually doesn't want her to go. The cook and the hitchhiker arrive and think she's the one sabotaging the place. Chop Top corrects Drayton and then tells him who the girl is. Now the cook's even more mad because they told her she was dead. Leatherface immediately has an "oh shit" look on his face like a 12-year-old kid whose mom just found his Twinkie stash. Chop Top teases Bubba that he likes her and she's his girlfriend, in which Bubba gives a little shrug like "don't hate the playa, hate the game." Drayton decides this is a good time to finally give Bubba the birds and the bees talk and how sex is just a scam you shouldn't get mixed up in. Chop Top wants Bubba to burn her like a rat while Drayton wants him to use the chainsaw, but no matter what they say, Leatherface refuses to do it. And the cook gives us the most iconic line of the movie.
Sex is, well, nobody knows. But the saw is family.
A line that will be referenced in other Chainsaw movies as well. Instead of killing Stretch though, they knock her out with an old bone and bring her back to the dinner table. Virtually an exact replica of the famous dinner scene in the original, they want to introduce Stretch to Grandpa, who's apparently 137 years old. Drayton gives us a little backstory as to why Grandpa quit the old slaughterhouse we heard about in the original, and just like in the first movie, they hold Final Girl Stretch over a bucket and let Grandpa try to get some licks in. Grandpa misses a bunch, but still seems happy as a daisy as we get a creepy ultra close-up on Grandpa looking like a Game of Thrones White Walker. The music intensifies as Stretch gets hit a couple times, which puts her out for a few seconds. The fun's interrupted by Lefty sawing some more stuff down, and like a badass, Lefty hops out of nowhere ready for battle. Drayton thinks a catering company he competes with sent Lefty, so he tries to pay him off. Lefty responds with,
I'm the Lord of the Harvest. Who's that? Some new health food bunch?
and gives up talking as soon as he sees Stretch. He immediately gives the cook a new asshole, and the others prepare for battle. Leatherface grabs his chainsaw and they fight like two swordsmen from the 12th century.
I don't know about you guys, but every time I watch this scene, I'm just way too distracted by the stuntman. He looks nothing like Dennis Hopper.
Stretch attempts to run off, beating up Chop Top in the process, and Bubba and Lefty continue fighting. This time with an audience of an old dude chilling with a Coca-Cola and Grandpa and Drayton Sawyer hiding under the table. The cook gives us probably the funniest line of the movie.
Oh, businessman that always gets it in the ass.
Turns out the dead guy drinking the soda is actually Nubbin Sawyer, the hitchhiker from the original film, who actually looks pretty good for being obliterated by a semi-truck at the end of the first movie. Lefty must have been a hell of a fencer in college because he makes his move and plunges his chainsaw into the belly of Leatherface here. Leatherface's belly looks like he's pulling the innards out of a red Halloween pumpkin, and I love how they slowly made them both pan to the side to show us. Look how cool this is, guys! Look, the chainsaw is all the way through his body! Lefty can't get the chainsaw out, so what does he do? He goes full dual wield on his ass and pulls out two other smaller chainsaws to finish him off. Leatherface gives no fucks and still fights him with a chainsaw on his belly. Apparently, Nubbins has a hidden grenade on him, which Drayton decided to pull out and then figure out what to do with. Grandpa Sawyer throws his hammer and misses Lefty, hitting Bubba in the process, which makes him fall, causing Drayton to drop the grenade. And we assume killing Lefty, Leatherface, Grandpa, and himself. Chop Top's safe at this time though because he's still chasing Stretch. They have a nice little fight scene on this really steep staircase leading up to a tower, and when Stretch makes it inside, she's greeted by dead Grandma Sawyer, who's also completely naked.
Oh, excuse me, ma'am. Wait, I probably shouldn't put my hands like that.
She's also holding a chainsaw because, you know,
the saw is family.
Stretch and Chop Top are now at a standoff in front of Grandma. Chop Top tells her to look at him as he slits his own throat 3 friggin' times. Stretch knows at this point how close and how weird the Sawyer family is, so she comes up with a quick plan to throw Chop Top off the rails. She reaches over and grabs the chainsaw from Grandma's lap, which makes Chop Top lose his mind and apparently kills Grandma, he says? She has a hard time starting the chainsaw, and like the badass final girl that she is, she keeps trying to start it even while being slashed with a straight razor, very similar to how Sally was getting cut at the end of the original movie. She finally starts the chainsaw and cuts through Chop Top not once but 3 times, causing Chop Top to fall most likely to his death, marking the 8th kill of the movie. And tipping their cap to the original film, Stretch does her best Leatherface chainsaw dance to end the movie, and we immediately cut to the credits. Again, assuming the others are dead, but not knowing the exact fate of Leatherface, Chop Top, Drayton, or Lefty.
Speaking of fate, let's find out the fate of the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre and figure out if it's one we want to grab or one we want to stab. First of all are the kills. If you count Grandma's death, there were 9 total deaths in the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And my favorite would have to go to Buzz's death, the yuppie, at the beginning of the movie. His head gets sawed in half while he's driving, and right away you notice that this movie's probably going to be a lot more bloody and a lot more gory than the first movie. Not only that, but the kill is just hilarious. I also respect the ingenuity on this one, that they didn't just go all fake head on us. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Friday the 13th Part 3. Second are the characters. Like I mentioned before, I thought the characters in this one were better than the original. It seemed like they took the time to build a backstory for the characters and kind of make you care about them. Like Final Girl Stretch, I found myself regularly rooting for her. I thought she was a great final girl. And Lefty's rage at the family wasn't just random. I mean, they killed his nephew and they also messed up his niece pretty bad, so he had a reason to actually go after them. LG was a cool guy too, despite his lack of game and overproduction of saliva. And yeah, like I said, Chop Top was completely ridiculous, but overall I thought the characters were better than the original. Third, how did the second Texas Chainsaw Massacre affect either the genre or the Chainsaw franchise at the time? And this is just my opinion, but I don't really think there was much of an effect at all. I mean, I guess you could possibly say that they might have inspired other franchises to go out on a limb and take risks and kind of ditch continuity, maybe go in a completely different vibe or feel. I don't really know. We get so used to sequels just continuing the plot of the first movie, but the first Chainsaw movie and the second Chainsaw movie could not be any more different. Overall though, I would say the effect it had on either the genre or the franchise at the time was, I guess, just so-so. And lastly, how scary was the movie? I think this one's pretty obvious. I mean, like I mentioned before, Tobe Hooper intended the movie to be more of a comedy and didn't intend for it to be really scary at all. And I hate to keep picking on him because I really don't hate his character, but Chop Top was just kind of silly and ridiculous throughout the entire movie. Although the movie was gory, it definitely wouldn't qualify as a scary movie. And with all that said, I'm gonna still have to go with a grab on this one. I thought the second movie, although it was kind of a shit show, was still entertaining. It had some good one-liners, there was some good gore in the movie, I thought the characters were better than the first one, so overall, I kind of liked it. And there you go, that wraps up the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Next week we jump almost 4 years into the future to 1990 and take a look at Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. In the meantime though, I'm Matt McFarland and you just finished watching Grab or Stab. Thanks for watching the second ever episode of Grab or Stab on my new channel Mad Blood. And although I didn't like the second Chainsaw movie as much as the first one, I still had such a good time making this video because as you can tell in this movie, there's just so many moments that lend itself to making corny jokes. And that's part of the reason why I started this channel to begin with. If you enjoy horror content like this, or just horror content in general, make sure you subscribe and also hit the like button. That really helps to get this channel off to a good start. All of my social media links are down below in the description. But anyways, you guys, thank you so much again for watching. I really, really do appreciate it, and take care, everybody.